Well, good evening. I'll call this meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency for the City of Salem for Monday, March 13th, 2023 to order. If the recorder will please call the roll.
Board Member Stapleton.
Here.
Board Member Nishioka.
Here.
Board Member Phillips.
Here.
Board Member Gwynn.
Here.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Here.
Board Member Hoy.
Here.
Board Member Nordijk. Absent. Board Member Varney.
Here.
Chair Hoy.
Here. And if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Councilor Stapleton, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
We do not.
Thank you. And we have nobody signed up for public comment for the Urban Renewal Agency. So Councilor Stapleton, the consent calendar.
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Thank you. The consent calendar consists of just one item tonight, and that is item 3.1A, the February 27th, 2023 draft Urban Renewal Agency minutes. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Is there any discussion? If the recorder will please call the roll.
Board Member Gwynn.
Aye.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Aye.
Board Member Hoy.
Here.
Aye.
Board
Aye.
Member Nordijk. Absent. Board Member Varney.
Aye.
Board Member Stapleton.
Aye.
Board Member Nishioka.
Aye.
Board Member Phillips.
Aye.
Chair Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. Ms. Rutherford, did you have anything for the good of the order? I see nothing else on our agenda.
I do not.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here. And we are adjourned. And I will call this meeting of the City of Salem City Council for Monday, March 13th, 2023 to order. If the recorder will please call the roll.
Councilor Stapleton.
I'm here.
Councilor Nishioka.
I'm here.
Councilor Phillips.
Here.
Councilor Gwynn.
Here.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilor Hoy.
Here.
Councilor Nordijk. Absent. Councilor Varney.
Here.
Mayor Hoy.
Here. And Councilor Stapleton, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, I move that we revise the agenda to include the revised proclamations. There was a couple of clarifications on those.
Second.
Thank you.
Any discussion? If the recorder will please call the roll.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordijk. Absent. Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. So now we are on to council and city manager comments. Do we have any? Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you. I didn't prepare anything, but I did want to say that Mayor Hoy and City Manager Staley and also Kimberly Fitzgerald here, we all got the chance to go out and meet with the Grand Ronde tribe and sit down and meet with them and see kind of what we were doing right, what we're doing well, what we could improve on. It was a fabulous day that we got to sit down and talk. We also got to go through their art exhibition, and it was fabulous. I highly recommend anybody going out there and doing that. So we've been really busy lately, a lot going on, but that was the one that kind of went to the top of my mind that I wanted people to know about. It was a really good time. So thank you to the tribe for having us out.
Thank you for highlighting that, Councilor. It was really, really a great time to be able to continue to further our relationship between the city and the tribe. And it's a really, really important relationship, and it was really nice to be able to go out and speak with them. Also, it was very nice to hear them describe the way we deal with issues related to the tribe as the gold standard, and that they refer other cities to us in trying to develop model policies and things. And that's kudos to Kimberly Fitzgerald, who is here we're going to be hearing from a little bit later, but there were many high praises for her, well deserved. And so thank you for highlighting that. Other comments? Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to share this evening to bring to light an experience of a fellow citizen of Salem. While stopped at a red light on Lancaster Drive, I noticed an elderly woman pushing a shopping cart filled with what appeared to be all of her worldly possessions. Much to my surprise, she walked over to a bush, pulled down her pants, and urinated in public. The light changed to green, and I continued on my way. However, the image remains with me today. It causes me to ask, why can't the city find a way to at least provide acceptable sanitation for unhoused people so they don't have to urinate and defecate in public, and the public doesn't have to witness it? I have great sympathy for a person trying to exist like this. The unhoused people in our community and all those living in Salem deserve better. I'm with Mary. We all need help. I'm doing what I can, one shopping cart at a time, picking up trash in our area as I feel safe doing so. As I returned to the parking lot after a trip to Target, our son stopped in his truck and I was soaking wet. My hoodie was, it was a rainy day. He gave me a nickname. He calls me the Lancaster Gnome because that's the way I appeared to him, pushing carts around the area. So I just think it's important to do what we can, no matter how small, because every little bit makes a difference.
Thank you, Councilor. Other comments? Mr. City Manager, do you have anything? All right. We are on then to proclamations. And we have, first up, a proclamation proclaiming April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. And we have Allison Kelly, the CEO of Liberty House, with us. And is Kyle Tarr here as well? Excellent. Kyle Tarr, who is the Prevention Program Director. If you'd both join me up front here. Whereas every child deserves to live in a safe, loving, and caring family environment, and whereas in 2021, there were 10,766 reported victims of child abuse and neglect in Oregon, and of those reported cases, 1,094 were victims in Marion County, and whereas we stand together as individuals, organizations, and government agencies to commit to preventing child abuse in our county by raising awareness throughout the community and by educating and supporting caregivers, and whereas we assert that strong families and safe, stable, and nurturing environments free from violence, abuse, and neglect are essential for children's optimal growth and success, which ensures a secure future of our communities where the needs of children are a priority and the needs of families are met. And now, therefore, I, Chris Hoy, Mayor of the City of Salem, do hereby proclaim April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, and ask the community to observe this month with programs and activities that commit to protecting our children. Dated this 13th day of March, 2023.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor Hoy, members of the Salem City Council, City Manager. I am just grateful for all your support. We live in a community that invests in children and supports children, and this is a piece of it. So thank you for the opportunity to pause each year and let us remember those who've had a hard time and how we can all do better. There are researchers in the field who tell us that child abuse is largely preventable, like 99% preventable. So I'd encourage you to go on the Liberty House website, check out our trainings, and see what you can do to learn. I also want to publicly thank Chief Womack and all the women and men of the Salem Police Department. We work with them. The whole village comes together to help children to be safe, and we appreciate this. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I know that our proclamation only mentioned Marion County, but it is really about Polk County as well. We didn't have the stats available for Polk County, so that's why only Marion County is called out, and I apologize to our friends in Polk County, but it is a community-wide issue for sure. Thank you so much. And next we have Mylan Davis for Arbor Day Month. Arbor Day Month, Arbor Month. Welcome. This is the long one. This is the long one, so yeah, hang on. Whereas our urban forest enhances our quality of life and helps to prepare us for a climate-altered future by providing cool shade on hot days, blocking cold winds in the winter, purifying our air, slowing down and cleaning our stormwater, absorbing and reducing noise pollution, and attracting birds and wildlife. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, produce life-giving oxygen, sequester carbon, and have a positive impact on mental health. And whereas trees increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas Arbor Day has been an occasion for planting trees and recognizing the many values and positive benefits of trees to human welfare since 1972. And whereas the city is a charter participant in the Arbor Day Foundation's Tree City USA program, having met and exceeded Tree City USA requirements for 47 consecutive years. And whereas the City of Salem is committed to continuing care for and expand our urban forest, now therefore I, Chris Hoy, Mayor of the City of Salem, do hereby proclaim April 2023 as Salem's Arbor Month. And I encourage all people of Salem to celebrate Arbor Month and to participate in efforts to plant and protect trees and woodlands for the well-being of this and future generations. Dated this 13th day of March, 2023.
Thanks, Mayor. I do remember about 3 years ago in a month, let's say, I was standing over there introducing myself to the council. I'd like to say you guys have made so many strides with helping our department, and just really appreciate all the support of council and look forward to working with all of you in the future.
Thank you so much, Mayor. All right, so now we are on to public comment. We're going online first or in person first? In person first. In person, first up, we have Eli Brody. And if you would be sure and state your address or your ward for the record. Reminder, you have 3 minutes. The yellow light will flash when we have 1 minute left, and the red light will come on at 3 minutes. And if you conclude your remarks at that time. And no worries, Eli. Deanna, you're up next.
Hey, 2 great proclamations.
Thanks, Eli. Hold on 1 second. We need to turn the microphone on. There we go.
Thank you, Virginia. I'm Eli Brody. I'm the Parks Chair for Northeast Salem Community Association and a former chair of the same association. And I oppose the term limits on neighborhood association chairs and co-chairs. It takes a good while for association chairs to understand just how all the processes related to city government work. Experienced leadership enables representation of community interests, and by community I refer to the residents living within the boundaries of an association, not the outside entities seeking to subvert the land use planning and approval process from within the neighborhood association's leadership. It's darn hard to get responsible, civic-minded people to come to a meeting or volunteer for an activity. And it's even harder to find people willing to shoulder the responsibility of being an association chair or co-chair for a year or two. A sad extension of this condition was recently shown in the collapse of the Lansing Neighborhood Association. No one available, no one willing to step up and take on the burden. If dedicated, experienced chairs and co-chairs are forced out by term limitations, what assurances can associations have that there will be an honorable and ready candidate knowledgeable enough to step in and manage the association during the next term? What assurance is there that these positions will not become political footballs to be fought over and controlled by sponsors with economic and/or cultural agendas? Thank you.
Thank you, Eli. Any questions or comments from councilors? Thanks for coming down, Eli. We appreciate it. Deanna Garcia.
Hello. Is the clock going to restart for me?
It is going to restart for you. If you'd introduce yourself and state your ward or your address for the record, please.
Okay. I'm Deanna Garcia, and I'm from Ward 6. I am the chair of the North Lancaster Neighborhood Association. And just as Eli mentioned, we recently absorbed Lansing Neighborhood Association into our boundaries. And that was because there was nobody to step up to volunteer and take over that neighborhood association. It's my personal opinion that not too many people are clamoring to be volunteers in neighborhood associations. I myself wanted to step down from my role, and I received some really kind words of encouragement to stay in my role from my counselor, Julie Hoy. So I was a little surprised to see this term limits thing brought up. So I just, I really think that it's important that people have an opportunity to volunteer, and there's no caps on that. There shouldn't be any term limits. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Deanna. We appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us. Are there any questions or comments? All right. Thanks for coming down. Suzanne Kaltwasser.
I'm Suzanne Kaltwasser. I live in Ward 8. I am the current co-president of the East Lancaster Neighborhood Association, where I lived for 30 years and still own property. I first began attending ELNA in 1989 and have continued to be a faithful member of that board, serving in various different capacities for the last 34 years. I'm not unique. This evening I sat down and took about a half a minute thinking of all the people that I know in neighborhood associations that have been involved at least as long as me, many more than that. These are people that are truly committed to be volunteers for their community, and I applaud them. When I joined ELNA, I first began, there were 7 staff members that worked solely with neighborhood associations. There were 17 neighborhood associations to grow finally to 19 eventually, but we've lost a couple of them in recent years, and we're now back to 17, but we only have 1 staff person that supports everything that we do in behalf of our communities and for the city of Salem's benefit. And I think that I could speak for all of the chairpersons and all of the board members that we welcome the city's support and would like to have even more support. It'd be wonderful to return back to some of the levels that we appreciated in the past. I have always stood ready to work collaboratively with the city of Salem, the staff, councils, mayors, and I continue with that commitment to always work in a positive way for the betterment of our community. And I encourage anyone who's out there listening to go to the city's webpage and in the search box look for what's my neighborhood. And you will find there the list of all of the 17 neighborhood associations, and you can sign up to get an agenda or you can attend their meetings, and I strongly urge you to get involved. It's a wonderful experience, it's worthwhile, and it brings true value not only to the volunteers, but to the community and to the city of Salem. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Are there any questions or comments for Ms. Kaltwasser? Thank you so much for coming down. Evan West.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Evan West. I'm a resident of Ward 7. I'm also a board member of SCAN, the South Central Association of Neighbors. Neighborhood associations are a front line of civic engagement in our community. They're a unique actualization of the concept of government by the people, for the people, and we're fortunate to benefit from them. I'm concerned by the proposal to limit terms of service for the elected officers of our neighborhood associations. Speaking from my experience with SCAN, the problems we are facing in our neighborhood associations unfortunately do not include a wealth of individuals seeking elected positions. As you're well aware, leadership positions at levels of volunteer government are filled by those who are able to dedicate their time and other resources to serve their community. SCAN's own bylaws once limited officers' terms of service to 6 years, but those bylaws were amended when candidates for elected positions could no longer be found. There's an advertising campaign currently underway designed to raise awareness of and engagement with neighborhood associations citywide. I would like to suggest that a proposal for term limits be postponed, at least until this advertising campaign has been successful. Enacting blanket term limitations on individuals who volunteer to lead before we achieve new engagement will only serve to weaken our neighborhood associations. Thank you all very much for your time and for your volunteer service to our community.
Thank you, Evan. Are there questions or comments? Thank you so much for coming down. Now we'll go online, and we have Kate Mentrum. I'm sorry, Kate, it seems that you might be on mute. We can't hear you.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you for having me. I am Secretary/Park Chair for Northgate Neighborhood Association, Ward 5. When you talk about term limits by chairs and for chairs and vice chairs, are you talking about permanently terminating the person from ever becoming the chair or president? That is like beheading the association's head. About 3 years ago, the last chair, secretary, and treasurer walked out on the association while we were not even in the executive team. According to our bylaws, we need a chair, secretary, and land use chair to exist, so our association would have, otherwise it would have perished. It started as a husband and wife team with a land use chair I had recruited for the former team. If it hadn't been for Irma, who asked us to take over and guided us, we wouldn't be here. Our new team of 3 became 11, and since then we made over 40 accomplishments. These were accomplished due to having a great chair and his leadership. We also have a strong team of board members whom we accumulated over the years since we took over. It took some effort to get there, and now we have a healthy association with, like I said, 11 great members. Much better than a little over 3 years ago with just 3. In Northgate's case, kindly make it on a case-by-case basis because we are a well-oiled cart that works. The community is overjoyed with some of the work we have achieved. Take a look at the award for being outstanding. It's right here. I received from the city end of last year for both the association and myself. If it hadn't been for our chair's impressive leadership, we wouldn't have received this. So now my question is, why fix something that's not broken? With this in mind, please say no to our motion for termination of our chair and vice chair, or many of the neighborhood associations will be disheartened. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate, for your testimony. Are there questions or comments? All right. And Bayard Mentrum.
Good evening. I'm Bayard Mentrum, Chairman of Northgate Neighborhood Association, Ward 5. The city is working on spending money promoting neighborhood involvement recently, and yet we read in the paper that the council is considering this motion to force term limits on neighborhood chairs and vice chairs without asking the neighborhood associations what they think of this idea. What term limits are you talking about, and what are the parameters and term lengths? It is quite a bit of work to set up a personal meeting, arrange guest speakers, listen to city council and other hoods, as well as finding out what the community wants. We are part of the eyes and ears of the neighborhood and work in the partnership with the city. The slogan says we belong. Well, these chairs, and like myself, take the time to learn Robert's Rules of Order, city rules, learn about members, run meetings, share land use matters. Doesn't happen overnight. Last year, Northgate needed to modify the bylaws. The board worked together and came up with a draft, which we sent to the city. We were asked to come and discuss this with the city. The secretary, community liaison, and myself, the chair, met with Courtney Knox-Bush and Irma. Together we worked on it and came up with what exists today. It was approved by our board members and the city. The bylaws there have no time limit to the chair and vice chair. But at the same time, Northgate's board can vote to remove any board member if he or she is not doing a good job. If there are any changes made on our bylaws of any particular ward, it should be done by the city and each particular ward together, like we did before. I hope the council members and staff will listen to what we want, support us where possible, and then we may finally have more neighborhood involvement. I urge the city council members to vote no to this motion. The city is there to help us, but not work against us. We are all doing this on a volunteer basis. The only reward we get is to receive, what we receive is to do good for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Bayard. Are there any questions or comments? All right, thank you for your testimony. Ted Burney.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Hoy, City Manager Staley, councilors. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you this evening. I am the chairperson for the Southwest Association of Neighbors, and I'm speaking in response to Councilor Julie Hoy's motion regarding term limits for neighborhood association chairs or vice chairs. I believe this is not in the best interest of the community if we want to ensure the continued functioning of neighborhood associations. Although this motion is being made with the intent to broaden outreach and enhance opportunities for participation, I do not see this playing out as intended. In reality, neighborhood associations do not have a waiting list of individuals clamoring to volunteer in order to take a leadership position. SWAN, our neighborhood association, holds elections to vote for individuals who are willing to lead. This election process is open to all in the association and is a method we use to ensure leadership changes can take place. If term limits are put in place, I see it as a means of reducing participation in neighborhood associations simply because there are a limited number of volunteers who are willing to take on the leadership positions. Term limits, I believe, would eliminate leadership in many cases in neighborhood associations throughout the city. Much like City Council, we are all volunteers, and shutting down those who are willing to lead by using term limits will effectively eliminate institutional knowledge within the neighborhood association and the relationship that we build with city staff that takes time to learn and time to build upon. So thank you very much for your time this evening. I would urge you to vote no on the motion to create term limits for neighborhood associations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Other questions or comments? All right, thank you for your testimony. Leslie Paulson. She's not in the Zoom room? Thank you. Ray Randall. Ray, are you there? We need you to hit that mute button. You're still on mute, Ray. Or I'm sorry, is it Randall Ray or Ray Randall? I see it both ways. There you go.
Randall Ray here, sir.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Very good. My name is Randall Ray. I live in Ward 5 near where Hyacinth and Hawthorne come together. I am new to the membership of Ward 5. I joined them back in July when a fire broke out across the street from my house. And I was very lucky to get in touch with Bayard and Kathy, and they were able to help me in that. With regards to everyone else's conversation about the reluctance to have term limits, I concur. I would be in concert with that suggestion. That I think it's has not been chatted out with the members of the people in the community that are working at the grassroots level. With this just being like 6 to 9 months, less than a year, certainly, where we have come out of the COVID. A lot of people are now able to chat with me when I go to their door from time to time. Of course, and that was last summer and spring, to encourage more membership. And I think that we will continue to grow the area, and I will work well with Bayard and Kathy to try and help them in that regard. I want to thank you once again for the opportunity to be here. Have a good evening, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. We appreciate your testimony. Other questions or comments? All right. And did we have Leslie Paulson join the Zoom room? No. All right. So that concludes, I'm sorry.
Mayor, we have a person that just arrived at council chambers that missed signing up for item 2. I believe he would like to comment regarding 7.1A. Is that right?
Thank you. If you go ahead and step up to the microphone and state your name and either your ward or your address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, my name's Frank Lemon, Lemmon, Ward 5, San Francisco Drive. And I just wanted to address 7.1A, which is the minimum parking, eliminate minimum parking. My concern is that businesses depend on customers. And if the city makes it more challenging for customers to access the businesses, they will suffer. And regarding parking in general, because I know the council is concerned about paid parking versus free parking and also off-street parking, it's my opinion that the first 15 minutes of on-street parking should be free. People wanting to do a quick drop-off or pickup ideally should be accommodated, such as picking up food at a restaurant. And then reducing parking spaces overall makes little sense when the public is being encouraged to convert to EVs, because private vehicles will still require some place to park. Salem Public Transit Service is middling, lukewarm. If accommodations for private vehicles are being reduced, then transit coverage and frequency must be increased. Otherwise, businesses, again, will suffer. End of my comments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. And I just would note that we'll be having a public hearing on that issue at a future date, so I encourage you to keep an eye on that, and we'll have an opportunity for more testimony. Thank you for coming down. We appreciate it. All right. That concludes the public comment. And with that, we will move on to the consent calendar. Councilor Stapleton.
I move approval of the consent calendar with the exception of item 3.3C, pulled by Councilor Varney.
Second.
Thank you. All right, we've got a lot of them here, so I'll try to do my best. Item 3.1A is the February 27th, 2023 draft City Council minutes. Item 3.2A, the acquisition of property for existing street and drainage improvements on 27th Avenue Southeast. Item 3.2B, initiate the legislative zone change and code amendment to repeal overlay zones in the Scan neighborhood. Item 3.2C, acquisition of easements for the Crestview Waterline project. Item 3.3A, recommended positions on specific priority bills for 2023 Oregon legislative session. Item 3.3B, extinguishment of railroad easement within the 2nd Street Northwest Improvement Project area. And finally, item 3.3D, accept the Navigation Center grant award of $1,344,661. I like saying that. It's a really great thing to say, from the state of Oregon. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there any discussion? If the recorder will please call the roll.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. And with that, we will move on to public hearings, item 4A.
Salem City Council will now conduct a public hearing concerning designation of the Civic Center located at 555 Liberty Street Southeast as a Salem local historic resource, the criteria Applicable to the decision is SRC 230.010E. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the applicable criteria or other criteria which the person believes to apply to the decision. A failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue shall preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Testimony will be allowed as follows. The city is the applicant and limited to 10 minutes. Applicable neighborhood associations may have to 10 or to 5 minutes, and other interested parties are limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I see that we have Kimberly Fitzgerald here, and I'm going to just do a pause real quick. I apologize, Kimberly. But we did have the member of public who had signed up for comment, who wasn't with us, has now joined us in the Zoom room. So I would, if council doesn't object, I would like to go back on the agenda to her and allow her just a moment, allow her 3 minutes, and then we'll get back to the public hearing. Thank you so much. I appreciate your patience. Leslie, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Great. Please introduce yourself and your address or your ward for the record, and go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, sorry about that. I was waiting to get in. My name is Leslie Polson, and I live at 930 Garnet Street Northeast, Salem, Oregon. I am not in support of term limits for chairs because there should never be a limit on volunteering for the city. Chairs and co-chairs are super volunteers whose dedication makes the city, the neighborhood, a better place. Please do not punish people who care enough about where they live and want to volunteer. Why should the city worry about volunteers when they're worrying about how to pay bills and how to collect funds to pay for programs? This proposal is the wrong solution to finding volunteers. You should never punish volunteers if you want more. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it. Other questions or comments? Thank you for taking the time to speak with us. Thank you. And we'll go back to our public hearing then. Kimberly, you are up.
Give me just a moment.
No worries. Thank you for your patience.
No, thank you. All right, I think... I don't see the...
If you go clear up to the top, and the little, there's a screen with an arrow in the middle of it. If you hit that button.
Oh, yes.
Yep. Up a little higher.
One.
There you go.
Sorry.
No worries. Perfect.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Kimberly, Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Salem. This is a public hearing tonight where you're considering whether to list the Salem Civic Center as a local historic resource. I'd like to enter the staff report, attachments, and all public testimony into the record. I'm sure you're familiar with where it's located, but I love maps, so here's a map. The Civic Center is located at 555 Liberty Street Southeast. The proposed area for local designation is bounded by Trade Street Northeast on the north, Commercial on the west, Leslie on the south, and Liberty Street Southeast on the east. The City of Salem was rapidly growing, and the 1897 City Hall building, which I love, and I'm sorry it's gone, was no longer sufficient to house city services. They were actually located all over the city at the turn of the century and moving into the 1920s and 30s and 40s. The community spent almost 2 decades completing multiple studies and engaging the public to determine where and how to build a new civic center that would unite all city services in one place by providing accessible public spaces that would unify the public. They were finally successful in 1968 when their final bond measure actually passed. Groundbreaking for the Civic Center occurred in 1970 with construction lasting 2 years. If you haven't yet had an opportunity to ride up and down in the elevator, there's more pictures there in addition to what you can see here. The Civic Center was designated and listed by the National Park Service. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. It was listed on November 2nd, 2022. and it was identified as a significant local example of brutalist architectural style, as well as an excellent representation of the ideals of Salem's community planning and development in the late 1960s and early 1970s. As a result, any changes to the exterior of the building will require historic design review. Placing the Civic Center on the local historic resource list will allow any exterior changes to be reviewed at the local level by our Landmarks Commission and, if needed, Council. Failure to place the Civic Center on the local list will require any exterior changes to be reviewed by the State Historic Preservation Office instead. It's the city's policy to place all National Register properties on the local list as well in order to apply our local design standards and facilitate a local process. So the applicable criteria, in order to qualify for designation, it needs to meet the applicable criteria for age, significance, and integrity. Under the criteria of age, it needs to be 50 years old, and it just turned 50 last year, thereby meeting this criteria. Second, significance. It needs to be significant in at least one area, cultural, human, or architectural, and the Civic Center is actually significant in all three areas. It has cultural significance for its association with Salem's community planning efforts. It has human significance for its association with the local Salem community who worked hard for almost 20 years to gain support for the bond measure that finally passed in 1968. And is also significant architecturally as an important example of the brutalist architectural style. And last, integrity. In this case, integrity means that it retains enough of its original historic form and location. And in this case, the Salem Civic Center is in the same place as the time it was constructed in 1972 to convey its original brutalist architectural style, landscaping, and use. And therefore, this criterion has also been met. We have received some testimony, which you should have been forwarded. We received email and support from John Christensen from the SCAN neighborhood, their Historic Preservation Parks and Gardens Committee, as well as email and support from Evan West. So should City Council find that the proposed resource is eligible for local designation, staff recommends the City Council advance Ordinance Bill number 323 to second reading for enactment. That concludes the staff report.
Thank you so much. And we have no members of the public signed up to comment on this public hearing. So I think we are ready for questions of staff. Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, everyone. First of all, my apologies for being late. The day job kept me a little bit long today, but it's an honor to be with you all this evening. And it's nice to see the rain has cleared up. That's also a lovely addition to my backdrop over here. Thank you for your presentation. I'm generally supportive. My question has to do with does this impact our ability to seek future energy efficiencies for this space? I know that as part of the Salem Climate Action Plan, we want to find ways that we can to reduce our carbon footprint, install solar where appropriate, install EV stations where appropriate, and so on. Would designation as a local, a local historic resource impair or preclude our ability to seek out those efficiencies in the future?
That's a good question. You actually approved some code amendments a few years ago to our Salem Revised Code Chapter 230, which allow and provide design standards for energy efficiency improvements. This was actually identified as a priority in the Historic Preservation Plan update, which we completed in 2020. So we heard from folks in the community, and we do have standards not only for public resources like this one would be, but also for residential and commercial that allow for energy improvements like solar panels and that sort of thing.
Other questions? All right. Kimberly, did you have any closing remarks?
No, I just, I love this complex. I know the brutalist architectural style. Some people can, you either love it or hate it. I was actually born in Boston, and their city hall is done in the same style. I feel like Salem's is actually better because of the integrated landscape design. So I'm a big fan. So thank you for considering it.
Thank you so much for your presentation. And I have to say that I'm generally not a big fan of brutalism. Big piles of concrete aren't my thing. But I do have a new perspective, and that was from our conversation last week with members of the tribe, and how they talked about how the landscape is really, and the natural environment is really integrated with this design out in Mirror Pond and throughout some of the grounds. So I actually do have an increased appreciation that I hadn't had before.
Yeah, I think they said that we have an actual representation of the Pacific Northwest brutalist architectural style with our complex. So
Yeah.
it's very unique.
Yes, that was a good perspective.
Yeah.
All right. With that, if there are no more questions for staff, I'll close the public hearing. And Councilor Stapleton.
Yes, I move that we advance ordinance bill number 3-23 to second reading for enactment, designating the Salem Civic Center as a local historic resource.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All right. If the recorder will please call the roll.
Counselor Phillips.
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn.
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Counselor Hoy.
Aye.
Counselor Nordyke.
Aye.
Counselor Barney.
Aye.
Counselor Stapleton.
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. And with that, we're on to special orders of business. Item 5A, Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move that City Council direct staff to prepare a code amendment for City Council's consideration to limit the consecutive terms for the chair and vice chair or equivalent neighborhood association board positions.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Councilor, to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in the last few days, I've heard more about neighborhood associations than I ever have, and I think that's remarkable. According to the city's website, Salem is proud to be the first city in Oregon and one of the first states in the nation to have organized and actively recognized neighborhood associations. Neighborhood partnerships bring business and residents together to create a more livable community with activities and projects designed to meet the unique character of each neighborhood. Neighborhood associations provide a place for participation in government decisions by bringing residents, city officials, representatives to the table. The work of neighborhood associations will be more rewarding, powerful, and less taxing with support of a diverse and strong board. I believe that establishing term limits for positions of chair and vice chair or equivalent with regard to neighborhood association boards will broaden outreach, enhance opportunities for participation, and increase possibilities for growth throughout the city. Neighborhood associations are incredibly valuable resources which will live far beyond our terms of service. I hope you'll join me in voting yes for this opportunity to consider a change for what I believe may be the better.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Councilor Phillips.
Thank you. This past week, I got the benefit of staff moving up the presentation of the city council meetings by one day. Very much appreciated. So the Morningside Neighborhood Association was able to see this motion and consider it during their general discussion. And a motion was made from that body and passed unanimously to oppose this motion as currently written. I think the majority of the testimony that I've read is in opposition to this. I think that the most supportive of the concepts of term limits, even they recommended waiting until we've done more outreach, and we're just starting that process now. So as it's currently written, I don't currently support it, although in future, if there really is a clamoring for people to serve in those positions, I could could change my position in future. But right now, the experience that I've had in the 3 neighborhood associations that I attend regularly, or try to attend regularly, is that any person who showed up and wanted to join the board gets to join the board that day. And usually it's a significant undertaking to recruit and retain people to serve in the chair and vice chair position. So again, I'll be rejecting it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Councilor Hoy, very much for your motion. And I, too, did receive some feedback from my neighborhood associations in preparation for this meeting. And I appreciate the conversation very much that I had with one of the neighborhoods that I was able to speak to before this meeting. They, too, expressed a variety of concerns. And I understand the goodwill and the good intentions behind the motion, but I will not be voting in support of it this evening. What I do understand is that our neighborhood associations sometimes do see a lot of longevity. And with that longevity comes a lot of institutional memory. And that has a lot of advantages to volunteer-powered organizations, especially because our neighborhood services staffing is not as robust as it once was, which means there's even more onus put on volunteers to do the work of sharing what's happening with the city in those neighborhoods. I also understand that board elections are an accountability measure. If there is concern that a particular, let's just say, hypothetically, that a chair has overstayed his or her welcome, elections are held on a regular basis for neighborhood associations. So that neighborhood is empowered to make changes if they see fit to for their own leadership. I'm also quite mindful of the delicate and important relationship that we have with neighborhood associations. And I want to caution us from moving from a position of partner to exhibiting more control over how neighborhood associations are run. It's a delicate relationship indeed, and it's one that I rely on to do my job. If I don't know what my neighborhood wants from me, from our budgetary process, from what they're seeing in terms of addressing homelessness, their reaction to housing projects and other developments coming to the area, I would have a lot less information. And without that information, I would not be making as good of informed decisions. To me, information is power. I value my neighborhood associations, and I want to ensure that they feel that they have the agency that they need to do their work and to tell me what they want done. Because it's really, I give them updates, but they tell me what they want to see. And that's really important to me. So while I understand goodwill and good intentions behind this motion, and I really respect Councilor Hoy for bringing forth this issue, I feel that additional time and input to gather from our neighbors, especially when we are in this phase of trying to get more folks engaged with our neighborhoods, that may address some of these concerns, especially as more people come on board, more people can vote, more people can speak up, more people can run for chair, vice chair, and other leadership positions within those neighborhood associations. So that's why I think I will agree to disagree with my colleague on this one. But again, I just really want to stress the professionalism and respect that I have for my colleague. And that's my perspective this evening. And I want to thank everyone who provided public testimony. Your input is invaluable, and I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. My thoughts on this are, I guess when I first read this, are, I think about our relationship with the state. And one of the things that we always do is when they try to take away our authority as a city, is we kind of bristle and rebel against that and say, even if we agreed with the idea, we don't want you taking away our authority as the state, taking away the city's authority, because we're independently elected, we're accountable to our voters, and we can make our own decisions. Thank you very much. And that's kind of how I approach this thing, which is this motion, which is neighborhoods they're really their own entity, and I think that they can make their own choices. And I also, in general, oppose term limits in democracies, because you can always vote somebody out if you don't like what they're doing. And so I feel like we already have built-in term limits, and I also don't like preemption. So for those reasons, I won't be supporting the motion either. Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Councilor Hoy, for bringing this forward. I think your intent here, and we've had the chance to talk too, which was really nice. Thank you for meeting with me and talking with me about your motion. I think your intent here is to increase involvement and increase diversity. And for that, I can only agree with you in those goals. I did have some questions for, I think, City Attorney and possibly City Manager. City Attorney, how would this process work? Would we be going out for public involvement? Would there be a process, a public hearing, or what's the process that you have laid out?
That's highly dependent on what council's druthers would be. If you would like the staff to do outreach on this to find the parameters of what folks are thinking about, we could certainly do that.
Okay, thank you. And City Manager, when you take that in, what do you think about our capacity right now I know we only have one Irma, and her time is, of course, very valuable. Do we have somebody to do that extra legwork right now in order to gain input from the community?
We do not. We would have to program this into our work plan with Lisa's help and with Irma's help to determine how this could fit into their work plan at a future date. But today, I would have to say no, we don't have the resources available to launch a significant public involvement process around this question or a broader question related to our neighborhood associations.
Okay, thank you. I did have some thoughts. I was thinking about this too, Mayor Hoy, kind of, how would I feel? And it was really funny because it gave me a moment to think about term limits in general. And before I became an elected official, I was all about term limits, and I think that's funny. And I still am very much so in favor of term limits when we think about the Supreme Court or when we think about Congress. But, as you get lower and lower down, I kind of tend to think that kind of land where you did, Mayor Hoy, where it was, we do have elections for a reason, and that is the way that we have how our democracy works. The concerns I heard from our neighborhood associations was really just a call to slow down the process. They felt like it was going too fast. Concerns that it would hurt the attendance and the availability of volunteers to do the work that they are doing. And they also shared in a concern that I think a lot of us have had over the past few years that I've been on council, and that is about diversity and about inclusion and about attendance and getting more people to attend and to volunteer. And so I really take all of that in, and I think that although your intent is, I think, in line with the intent of council as a whole, when it comes to neighborhood associations, which is about, adding more people and adding diversification to the folks who are there and represented. I'm not sure that this is the time for it. I think about the work that we're doing on boards and commissions, about really trying to figure out how make that work really good for our city. I think about the work that we're doing on our charter, which both of those things are in our work plan already. And I feel like those are really good steps when we look about trying to increase involvement and diversification all across these different functions, whether it's city council, boards and commissions, and I think that neighborhood associations could be the next step after that to really look at how can we support them better. How is our communication plan going? How can we increase involvement and diversity? So I think at this time I would respectfully not support your motion. But in the future, I think this is a conversation that really does need to continue to be had, not only in our individual neighborhood association meetings, but as a council and as we move forward in trying to really get that equity lens throughout the city and all the different ways that we interact with the public.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. And again, I want to thank all of those that provided testimony. I too agree with all that has been said by the other councilors and Mayor Hoy. I think that Councilor Hoy's intent was really trying to be positive for the neighborhood associations, but at the same time, I agree that they're probably not ready yet until there's a more robust membership. The amount of information that they must learn and go through really has a history and longevity, and I think that those that stay with as a chair or co-chair for extended times, it's because they have that strength already in place, and the other members of the neighborhood association recognize that. I believe all of their bylaws do require election, and again, that's the way to move into another position if somebody is willing to serve. So I too, even though I know that this was a good intention motion, feel that this is not the right time. But I do thank Councilor Hoy for bringing this forward, and I also feel that the neighborhood associations will look at that as they move forward and maybe adjust their bylaws if they feel that's necessary. So I think the intent was excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Councilor Varney.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. And thank you, Councilor Hoy, for bringing this forward. I think it's one of the things I've noticed is it has gotten even more discussion going, which I feel is really, really important. Because we all recognize that there is, we would like to see an increase in attendance and participation at our neighborhood associations. And in terms of term limits, I mean, sometimes when you don't have term limits, it can get into a situation where individuals that maybe are not as strong a leader feel intimidated or inhibited to try to kind of push and step into a place. So I think there's certain situations where they are helpful. But for our neighborhood associations right now, and well, especially right now, while we're looking at the whole big picture about what techniques we might look at or try, I'd like to hear from a lot of different neighborhood associations about what their plans are to increase participation and attendance. I think this is a great topic of discussion. I'm not going to support the motion right now because I don't think it's quite the time, and also directing staff to do something right now. I understand they are maxed out as it is. But I don't think this should be totally taken off the table. I think it should be part of the discussion moving forward.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Gonzalez.
Thank you. And to continue the conversation, I'm going to be voting in favor of this. And I would do the same thing if the term city councilor was replaced with this. I mean, because right now we do have term limits. It's called forever, or until someone passes away, or until someone physically can't do it anymore. So we do have term limits. It's just they're not in writing. And these roles, neighborhood associations, city councilors, very different from nonprofit boards, right? Very different, because this deals with where you live, something that people really can't control very easily, something that people can't move away from very easily. So we have to really be mindful of who are in those positions. Because even the city councilor, we have approximately 20,000 people in each ward. And if there's 15, 16, 17, 18 neighborhood associations, that's almost 10,000 people per neighborhood association. I don't know if the math is right, and most of those people should be participating. Outreach is difficult, and I think the difficulty has been neighborhood associations used to be the place where these things were discussed. But now there's so many things, so many ways that the city interacts with people. Social media is one example, email. I mean, there's just so many ways that people can get involved and engage, where I think we have to look at how neighborhood associations are working today. Because from the city council level, we see the good and the bad. And from day one, as soon as I was elected, I began to look for someone to take my role. And I think that's a very important part of leadership. And I think anybody in any chair or vice chair role should be thinking about that. So Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councilor Gonzalez, for that. My sentiments exactly. I had fresh eyes coming into neighborhood associations because I had never attended until I decided to run for city council. And I realized quickly that each neighborhood association has its own personality and makeup. And Deanna Garcia was spot on. I begged her not to go because I felt that I could learn from her wisdom from helping to run a neighborhood association. NOLA has good participation, and that's exciting, and was willing to absorb Lansing. Seeing Lansing go was sad. You know, folks who participated in Lansing, it was down to 2 members showing up for those meetings. Elna doesn't have a lot more than maybe 4 or 5 or 6 coming. And I don't want to see the same thing happen. I want that wisdom, that wealth of wisdom that the Suzanne Kaltwassers of the world carry and have the power to impart to others, to teach. And I want recruitment. I want people out there giving credit to neighborhood associations and the power to be where it belongs. But as long as the same people show up at the annual meeting and vote the same people in time and time again, it doesn't change. And if those people don't have time to recruit, then they need to ask for help. And I've witnessed myself the efforts of Irma Coleman be pushed aside in a meeting, subject changed. And I think that needs to stop. So.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? If the recorder will please call the roll.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordijk.
Nay.
Councilor Varney.
Nay.
Councilor Stapleton.
Nay.
Councilor Nishioka.
Nay.
Councilor Phillips.
Nay.
Mayor Hoy.
Nay. Motion fails. Councilor Varney, item 3.3C.
Thank you. I move that we authorize the city manager to execute the attached lease amendment with Avis Budget Car Rental, LLC.
Second.
Discussion?
I wanted to just kind of bring this up for discussion because obviously the airport has been on our minds a lot lately. And I thought about the 5-year lease, and I was wondering, you know, there's some uncertainty about moving forward, kind of what's going to happen. And I was concerned a little bit about some of the flexibility in the lease. So I just had some questions. I'm looking at this through the lens of someone that's totally unfamiliar with lease agreements at airports. And rents and other associated costs are going up all over. Utility rates are going up and everything. And so I understand the increase. The reason for this amendment is because there's going to be more square footage available for Avis Budget to use, and it makes sense to not increase their rental rate right now and then increase it incrementally. That makes a lot of sense to me. But I do have some questions about the vehicle parking rental rate for them. You know, parking has become even more of a limited commodity citywide as Salem continues to grow. And the airport has 237 total parking spaces, and Avis Budget leases 65 of those. Well, currently public parking at the airport is $5 a day, and we are potentially thinking of increasing that a little bit. What I wanted to, Avis is currently paying $15 per truck space per month and $10 per car space per month. Whereas down at our parkades, for example, I think of employees that are working downtown that are working minimum wage. They're required to pay $50 per month for a spot at one of the parkades. So it just kind of got me thinking. I support I support this and what we're doing, but I just really had some questions about flexibility. For instance, with vehicle parking, the lease said that there's language in the lease to renegotiate the number of vehicle spaces Avis will have available to use as we iron out our parking needs associated with commercial air service, but will we have any flexibility to change those rates? I think that's a question I had.
Thank you, Councilor. Mr. City Manager is going to give those a shot to start.
The short answer to your question is yes. We will have the opportunity to change the rates, and we do recognize that as we move into commercial service, that change will be necessary. It'll be necessary for us to look at how we're utilizing parking at the airport and what we're charging for parking at the airport. I had the same questions of the airport manager as you about the low lease rate, both for the facility and parking, and that will definitely be a conversation as we go forward and establish commercial air service there. Brian may be able to add some additional perspective on this as well. John is not able to be with us this evening.
Yeah, I would just second what the city manager has pointed out. We'll want to look at some of these things once we actually have the air service in place. And I know that John has spoken with them, and they will not be surprised if some of these changes will take place once commercial air service is in place.
Mr. Martin, could you introduce yourself for the record,
I'm
please?
sorry, Brian Martin, Acting Public Works Director.
Thank you. Councilor Gonzalez.
Just one more comment, because I know that they're pretty much just using regular parking spaces. There's sort of confusion on if that public parking or is that their parking. And maybe in the future, they can just somehow consolidate their cars in an area, not so, that way they're not taking up regular parking spaces, maybe just somewhere else or some other way that they can squeeze more if they're not using them, just not sure how they're organized on a day-to-day basis, just.
We agree.
Other discussion? All right, if the recorder will please call the roll.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordike.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, on to information reports. We have item 6A. Any questions or comments on 6A? Councilor Varney.
Thank you. Let me get to my notes here. I'm sorry. 6A. The one thing that I wanted to mention about 6A was I was really impressed with the way, although they're adjacent to river and wetlands, they were able to not take out any trees and preserve all of them. And I just wanted to mention that it was just really nice to see, because I know that's come up in the past. And anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Thank you for highlighting that. I think that's the result of the code amendments that we've made over the last year or so. So, yeah, I think that's a great thing to highlight. Other comments on 6A? 6B? 6C? Councilor Varney.
Okay, I'm the tree person. Thank you, Mayor Hoy. I realize we really need housing, but when I first read through this, I went, okay, there are 827 trees on the property, and 677 are slated for removal, with only 150 remaining. And I just kind of cringed. And then as I got through and read through the document in closer detail, I realized that not less than 30% of all of the trees on a property, how do I explain it? 30% are supposed to be left and preserved, and that isn't happening in this case. And that's a requirement of our SRC 808-035D1D. But when there are no reasonable alternatives to meet that standard, what's wonderful is we have implemented in the last couple of years, code to help to provide mitigation measures to make up or, mitigate a bit for the those trees. And the 4 different methods that could be used for mitigation are residential density, an increase in residential density, or solar power offsets, or electric vehicle charging stations, or providing open space lots. And I was just really pleased in this to see that a number of those are listed in the conditions along with this. Condition 12, Lot 4 and 10 will be on the final plat as open space. Let's see, under condition 13, there will be 16 3 kilowatt solar arrays. I mean, these are the conditions in order for it to be approved. 14, all 38 lots shall include electric vehicle charging units. And under condition 15, 14 trees shall be planted on lot 4 and 14 trees planted on lot 10. So I just wanted to point out that despite the fact that all these trees are being taken out, there are mitigating measures being taken potentially, and we do definitely need the housing. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anything else on 6C? All right, item 7.1A.
Ordinance Bill Number 423, an ordinance relating to parking, amending SRC 30.050.055, .1110.405, 111.001, 210.045, .065, 525.010, 530.030, .045, .050, 533.015, 534.015, 537.010, 552.010, 603.020, 700.020, .021, 701.030, 800.040, 800.065, 804.060, 806.015, .020, .025, .030, .035, .040, .045, .055, .060, .075, and .080, and repealing SRC 806.005 and .010.
Thank you. Councilor Stapleton.
Yes, I move that we conduct a public hearing on ordinance 4-23 for the purpose of amending the Unified Code, Development Code to eliminate minimum off-street parking requirements citywide in response to the new state rules and advance to a second reading.
Second.
To your motion?
Yeah. This is, I think, really exciting work. I am really appreciative of staff for this. They really helped guide us. It started at the Climate Action Plan and then meeting with counselors to help us really understand what was happening here. And then moving from there out into the community to make sure that folks knew what was happening just coming down from the new state rules. And so I'm excited to see this move forward.
Thank you, Councilor. And just to clarify this, if this passes, we would conduct a public hearing. Just make sure everybody's clear on that.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's all we're voting to do is to hold a public hearing, not to actually implement the rules. So, Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you so much. So I want to follow up on those comments. What I want to make sure folks understand is that the state of Oregon has imposed a lot of statewide changes. So cities like ours are going to now have to implement changes to parking requirements, and that means a lot of the parking mandates are just going bye-bye in cities around the state. And I am excited to see what this process looks like, and I would encourage folks to check out an article from the Sightline Institute. They talk about, in that article, the fact that this rollback to parking mandates is one of the biggest they've seen around the country. And they talk about how this might actually change a lot of business districts, a lot of downtowns, and I just want to share a few highlights. Nobody has a crystal ball, but these are some of the things that can arise from lifting these parking mandates. For example, you might see some half-empty parking lots around town. You might be wondering, when on earth do they ever actually need all of those spots, right? Well, now that they're freed from those parking requirements, owners of those lots can start renting out extra space, which means it keeps that money in our local economy. And the Sightline Institute article talks about how that happened in Ecorse, Michigan, where they eliminated parking mandates, and they were able to connect a developer with an adjacent business that had a large, really large parking lot, and they were able to rent out that space. So it allowed that money to stay local. Another potential virtue of this is that it means that construction plans can happen faster, because every time there's a new construction plan, if there's a parking mandate, that means figuring out just how many parking spots each new building proposal would require. And not to mention the paperwork for variances. And I've heard from plenty of people in the development community that the construction process, the permitting process, it already takes a lot of time and a lot of money. So everything we can do to expedite that process means that developers can use that money towards making projects pencil. And we talk about that with city staff all the time. How can we make projects pencil? So, and with those savings passed on to the people who will inhabit those spaces. Another advantage that might result from this is that you just might see vacant areas better utilized. And I really am excited at that prospect. It means if you have a gigantic parking lot, my office has a gigantic parking lot. I can't imagine when we will need all those spots. It could be that many people might benefit from this. So anyway, those are just some of the things that I can see here that might result and might be a positive thing. I should note my business, my nonprofit is in Kaiser, not in Salem, just for the record. So anyway, I just wanted to share that information with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? If the recorder will please call the roll.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 7.1B.
Ordinance Bill number 523, an ordinance relating to overlay zones, amending the Salem zoning map by repealing the Superior Rural Overlay Zone, Oxford West Nob Hill Overlay Zone, Oxford Hoyt Overlay Zone, Hoyt McGillcrest Overlay Zone, and Saginaw Street Overlay Zone, amending SRC 110.030 and repealing SRC 621, 622, 623, 624, 625, 900.220, and 900.225.
Let's see, that would be Councilor Nishioka. Are you prepared to make a motion?
Yes, Mayor Hoy, I am. Let's see, where are we? I move to conduct a public hearing on ordinance bill number 5-23 for the purpose of eliminating the Saginaw Street, Superior Rural, Oxford West Nob Hill, Oxford Hoyt McGillcrest overlay zones, and advance to second reading.
Second.
Councilor,
do you have any discussion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Hoy. The SCAN neighborhood is in agreement with eliminating the development overlay, the overlay zone development. I'm not even sure regulations, but they're very concerned about the height, and I want them to have the opportunity to move this to public hearing so that they can bring forth their comments and concerns.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? If the recorder will please call the roll.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 7.1C.
Ordinance Bill Number 623, an ordinance relating to parking, amending SRC 50.265, 102.010, .040, .065, .085, .105, .135, .145, .150, .155, .160, .170, .200, .205, .210, .215, .235, .240, repealing SRC 102.230.
Councilor Stapleton.
Yes, I move we advanced ordinance bill number 6-23 to amend the SRC Chapter 102 related to parking to second reading.
Second.
Thank you. I would just like to also thank our city recorder for all of their work tonight and reading all of these numbers. Thank you. This is just another step in the process. I'm not sure I have a lot to add to this. Others may have more to say.
Do others have more to say? They do not.
It's the end of the night, so.
It is. It's all between us and adjournment is your discussion on this item. Go for it. If the recorder would please call the roll.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordike.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye, motion passes. We have no second readings. We have nobody signed up under number 8, public comment. And so we are. I see we have a scout troop here. I don't know anything more, so I don't know how else to recognize them. Thank you for observing our meeting tonight. Welcome to City Council Chambers. You bet. And with that, we're adjourned.